What's up, y'all? Ay. Little intro with Frank the Guitar. Today's the 4th of March, 2025. This is In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, and this is actually episode 75, titled A Perfect World. Anyway, I love that it's just about never quite on tempo. The intro is with Frank the Guitar, but this is him. Little Yamaha CGS 102A with a custom radius that I have done personally. Very custom guitar. Not for the sake of anybody caring. I just mean there's not a guitar out there that's quite like Frank. Kind of like me. Not for the sake of anybody caring, right? Same thing, seriously. In all genuinity, even though that might not be a word, but yes, genuinely, that is the case of these things. So I told you the title and I told you the date. I told you what we are here partially, but we're going to further that discussion and description of what In the Image Clothing Company is. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. We have three sides to us. This side here is In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. We have discussions on the truth of all things. I know it's bold. I know it's like, how does this kid think that he knows what's going on? Because he is a kid and always will be. Yes, I am. And yes, that is also true. The secondary part of that first thing that we said. But the gospel of Jesus Christ, you look around, you're wondering how to navigate this earth, and well, there's your blueprint, there's your roadmap, there's your answer to everything. The one and only God, Jesus the Christ, the one who created all of us in his image, as is the first three words in our 5-word name as a whole, In the Image Clothing Company. Now, the last two words in our name, Clothing Company, right? In the Image Clothing Company, all one word, but the last two on the main side, another one of our thirds to our company, the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, I go over the anatomy of the human body. We talk about the body as it is, just like within the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's just what there is right in front of us. You can have all the opinions and beliefs and ideas of whatever you want, but truth is truth. So we discuss truth here, but I'm a sinful by nature, as we all are, human being. And I mess up. I don't relay everything exactly perfectly, nor could I ever. But neither can you, regardless of what you want to believe or tell your whoever you're trying to tell that to, because that happens. I've seen it and it's not so great. But guess what? This is episode 75 of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, titled A Perfect World, and we're going to get into a lot of that. But yeah, with discussing the anatomy of the body, we come at it from the skeletal system, because the fat content of the human being changes at different times in our lives. Even if yours, in your specific case, stays pretty well the same, it still fluctuates, and so does the amount of muscle mass that we have. And also, there's no need to focus on the musculature of the body, because all the muscles do is move the skeletal system. So the body really is about its foundation and a natural position that it has. Every joint within the body has a neutral. It's just bones connecting, and they only have the range of motion and the functionality that they do. And we discuss clothing. We show modifications within clothing. We show how clothing needs to sit and be placed onto human beings, because there's a center line to the human being. There's no opinion to have on it. We live on an earth with gravity. Gravity pulls us straight down. There's two sides to the center line, which is the spine, the sternum, the nose, the trachea. There's things that are at the center of the body that there's no way to try to get out of for any reason that you could try to come up with. And that seems to happen sometimes. People try to debate as if there isn't, but there is. There's no possible denial that can have that's valid in any way. So clothing has to stay centered. It has to fit correct. And then that way we can, keyword, allow the body to work. Under In the Image Clothing Company, we always say that's all we can do, is just do everything we can do to allow the body to work. We will never get a mechanical machine, which is our fleshly physical being the human body, to do anything that it's not designed to do, because, as that episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast title states, we didn't design it, we can't decide it. And you can't tell me anything that's not going to be the case, and I can't tell you anything that's not going to be the case. Truth is just truth. It's apart from all of us. And again, episode 75, this one here of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, A Perfect World, we're going to get into a lot of this good stuff that's going to ruffle some feathers, and good. Let's wake some people up. Now, yeah, please. Utopias are only a dream state. Unless, stick around, it's going to be really sweet. So, we discuss clothing on the main side, right, of In the Image Clothing Company, but we discuss also eating naturally, sleeping naturally, standing naturally, sitting naturally, staying hydrated, what it really means, because water actually dehydrates you if you have an excess amount. It's just going to flush out all the minerals and nutrients, things, right, electrolytes, on all the words that I may or may not know, so don't believe me. But all the things within your body that regulate its fluid amount, just flushing water through it is actually depleting your body of its electrolytes that are going to balance its system, right, of hydration. So, as I said there about a minute ago, or less, it was less probably, but it was less than a minute ago. I'm almost absolutely sure of it. And if I'm wrong, then hey, guess what? That's what I'm saying is, don't believe me. I say it all the time. Don't believe me. You don't need to. You don't need to. I'm just going to say that twice, I guess, because you don't. When I say that I discuss truth here, and we as a company, In the Image Clothing Company, we discuss truths, we do. And so the thing with truth is it manifests itself to you. It's something that you can know regardless of if another human being tells you it or not. It's something that is just what it is, whether you believe it or not, or want it to be that or not. Truth is what it is, man, and that's all that there really is truth. And we live in a modern 2025, and a lot of people are pretty lost and confused, and I understand why. We are commanded to overcome the world and put the world aside, and not care about the things of the world, and we live in a very showy, flashy world where there's things in our face constantly, opinions and beliefs, and people who are very controlling, and things to get on board with, or whatever, right? Things to assign yourself to. So don't believe me, and I mean it. I mean that so real. So much so that I use that type of grammar in describing how much I mean it, because don't. Please. And the more that you understand what truth is, the more you understand how you don't have to believe something for it to be what it is. Yeah. I grew up my whole upbringing with my earthly father, him telling me what I could do, what I can't do, what I was and who I was and what I wasn't and who I never would be amounting to, and all the things that he said, and he just wanted me to believe everything, and that his way was right, and really it was just because he was so trapped in his own beliefs and misled himself. So that's a state that a lot of people are in, is just very misled, and we don't need to believe anything. If we can stop believing things and just live our lives, then truth just comes to the surface, because it always does, regardless of how manipulative people get, and they do. It's really annoying, but they always have, and they always will. So, episode 75 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, A Perfect World. That's why this is here, because, well, I mean, all the reasons that it's here is why it's here, but it's going to be a beautiful discussion, so stick around. But yeah, main side of In the Image Clothing Company, a lot of that stuff. Really just the human body's function in all ways that it does. And how to do that naturally, how to allow it to. Now, we also have another third, which is In the Image Clothing Company Music. Frank the guitar is my current guitar, so at this time period, that is who I have over there. We discuss setups of guitars to allow the hands that only do the things that they will ever do, which is just actually their operation. I mean, I think people think that it's limiting to tell them that their body is never going to do something. Like there's something you're telling them that, no, your body will never do this function. Like sitting in a chair height, for example. It's not a limiting thing, but it's just, it won't. There's certain things the body just will never do. there's certain things that we never can do. Um, I know that that seems a little bit weird to some people, depending on, again, where your beliefs are, but things are just what they are. And so, yeah, I show how to set up guitars, sizing of instruments. We talk about all the things that we do talk about within music. I make music over there, so you can check that out if you'd like to. Now, let's talk about clothing for just a little bit of time here, and then we'll get into the discussion. I always do within the intros, unless I forget or whatever, right? Which, if it happens, right? Again, I'm sinful by nature. I'm messing up. Don't believe me. Seriously. Don't believe me on where I tell you your clothing has to fit you when you live over in Ukraine and I've never met you. But try it. And if your body starts to feel better and just work and is less restricted, and ideally really pretty well not at all, other than just like the weight of clothing on us that you can't really do anything about if you're wearing it, then it's truth, right? I mean, truth is truth. It manifests itself to you. That's what I mean. You don't have to believe me. Truly, please do not believe me. But pants for everybody, man, woman, tall, short, skinny, fat, any age, any part of the earth, any time period ever, from beginning to end, if there is one of either of those, right? Okay, and we get into all those type of things in and how and if we do. But pants that we wear need to be entirely above the hips, all the way up above the hips. Slightly higher in the front than in the rear for the waistband to keep those core muscles activated, something that should always be activated. It's just part of the body's function. If anything within the body isn't working correct, something else and many things have to compensate. It just all goes where any other part of it goes. And so the core of the human being should always be activated with zero exercises to do. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I'm not going to talk much more about that. I have and I do and we do where we do, but in the Image Clothing Company is where we do that. But just, yeah, the core just has to be activated. No dispute, no opinion, no nothing about it. It's unfortunate. Don't exercise, please. Please don't. Like, for the sake of exercise, go do all you want. Play all the sports you want. Go on the hikes you want. Do whatever you want to do. Move your body and let it work. But please don't be exercising for the sake of trying to get exercise in because you feel like it's not an obligation or like you owe it to your body. You know, what you owe your body is to allow it to be working as an entirety, always, as it always would, unless you altered it. With things that aren't your fault, usually, right? These things within clothing and designs and materials and stuff that's altering the body, it's, in almost everybody's case, not their fault, as it wasn't mine until I was 24, and then I learned these things, and now, right, once we know things, we have to be held accountable for what we do know, but if you don't know what's going on, then it's not your fault. But we discuss what the truth of the reasons that we have these chronic, persistent pain patterns within our bodies across the earth. We actually show the real reasons, undisputed, and don't believe us, but it is the truth as to why these are happening. So the tops that we wear, the seams on top of our shoulders need to be evenly behind these little bones that are on the very top of the shoulders, like the very peak crest of the shoulder toward the edge. That's going to keep the shoulders in their natural position, which is where they would always only ever work and always do only ever work behind the body, where those upper trapezius muscles connect that go from the very, 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 as I word it, right? I put a lot of varies within that when I say it. The very base of the rear of the skull and actually connecting to the spine on the neck and then to the shoulders. That's where the upper trapezius muscles connect, those muscles that allow you to shrug your shoulders. The shoulders have to be behind the body because that's the only way they're actually going to even function at all, ever, for any human to ever live. So yes, that's where those seams sit. And then right at the very edges for the edge seams, just because it's a ball and socket joint, there's just mobility and motion that has there, that the shoulder does have there, right? Rotations, reaching, extending, pivoting, all the things that go into the shoulder capsule, all the bones that are in there, you don't want to hit them together. All the muscles that just have insertions that pull together, they can only do that in line from where they connect, right? Body only works how it does. We don't have a say over it. So yes, that's how that's going to be. Now, In The Image Clothing Company has two additional things we talk about being prerequisites under our company, just to further aid in no restriction to the body. Again, no opinion, you don't have to care, but it's the only way you're going to have your body work. The first one, right, being shoe lacing. It's just a rope woven onto the top of the human foot. The top of the human feet only are shaped the way that they are. They're all the same, right? I mean, if you have a deformity or whatever, okay, that's your own personal, very specific case. Like, very small percentage of people have maybe differences in ways they do, and sure, they do. But the human foot's just designed how it is, and it's only shaped one way. And so there's only one way to weave a rope across the top of it to shape that like the top of the foot. I mean, that was a little bit redundant because I said it multiple times as I explained it, but it's, I mean, I think it's just kind of about hitting the point as obvious as it is once we see it, like I word it, right? So with our shoelacing technique under In the Image Clothing Company, that is included with 2 of our prerequisites, but also we tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside. They have to go to the center line of the body that we established is there. Again, no opinion, no belief, no sitting within like some kind of class to try to get so centered. I mean, in other ways, sure, yeah, take some time out from the world, ideally always, right? Like I'm saying. But as far as physically, you just have to let your body be centered, and it will, truly. And we show, again, you don't believe it, but just the actual truth of how to do that here. So there's the shoelacing technique. Secondly, though, we also remove all tags from clothing. Anywhere a tag's placed within clothing is just going to either alter the skeletal system's only working position because there's a physical gap being caused, or it's just being pressed against musculature that's not being allowed to activate. And now, again, like I mentioned earlier, if anything within the body isn't working correct, something else and many things have to compensate because, I mean, it's all just connected. It's all just what it is. It all has to be exactly how it's going to work, or it's just not going to work. Within like vehicles, right? Like a car, we have these systems that can come up nowadays, and trigger a light. And it tells you like a check engine light or like a service engine light or some kind of warning light of any kind within the vehicle telling you that there's something that's not quite working how it's designed to work. That's physical pain within the human body. If you're experiencing pain, all that is your body's nervous system, just a sensory electrical system stemming from the brain, down the brainstem, through the spine, out through the entire body. It's giving you like a warning light, like on the dashboard of your vehicle, saying, hey, something's wrong and something's not working how it's going to. The only way it ever will. It's being altered from that state. So, right, that's what we talk about here, is just how to keep the body in the only position it will ever do anything in. I mean, I know how bold that is, and I emphasize it because it is that bold, because it is that real. So, yes. Now, let's get into this. Episode 75 of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. What was the title of this thing? A Perfect World, dude. We live in a perfect world. Or do we? I was thinking about this. I was on my walk today. I go on this 12 and a half mile walk on this beautiful river trail. And I was thinking about, we can live in a perfect world, except we can't. And I was really thinking about it, right? Not just like as silly as that little explanation was or could be, but that's as simple as the explanation needs to be. But I'll really get into it as much as I do and in the ways that I do, because the whole thing about being if you've heard the term utopia, that's like a perfect world, and then a dystopia is like a world that's all gone to hell, really. I mean, in all seriousness, right? Like a world where we feel like we're living in hell. And where are we? In 2025, on our Earth. We're in that state, at least in the man-made part of things, right? In the societies that we've come up with, because it's because like I just said a minute ago, and that's humbling because also, like I just said, that's as simple as the explanation would need to be. We can live in a perfect world, except we can't. And that's really humbling because that's really real. I mean, that's like fully explained, just like that. I think a lot of people have this idea of what if we could make a perfect world and make a perfect place to live in? Well, you can. There's nothing stopping us from living a perfect world except for ourselves. A lot of times people are very quick to talk about how terrible the world is. But well, shout out to episode 74 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, dude. Behind Yourself. It was titled Being Behind Yourself. And I started saying this kind of thing within there. I was like, you got to get behind yourself a little bit. You know, I was talking about how the human body naturally stands and sits and moves and just operates and breathes and everything that it does physically. It feels like you're behind yourself more, right? Because of where everything connects and just how it works mechanically. And I went into that in depth. I went into a lot of cool stuff. I talked about some topics, dude. It was a cool episode. I talked about race. Ooh, right. I talked about a whole bunch of stuff in episode 74 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Behind Yourself. Being Behind Yourself is the actual title. But, yeah, what I was saying though within that is, a lot of people are looking at life as if they're ahead of themselves, and they're not looking like at them and then life. They're just looking at life. And if you can be behind yourself, like get behind yourself a little bit. I was talking like that within there, dude. Because if you get behind yourself, and now you're including your own being in your view of life, okay? So with this, we can totally live in a utopia, but it has to start with you, right? You want everybody to be able to treat you so perfectly, how you think that you should be treated by them, but you're not treating yourself that way, right? Telling everybody to be so kind with you, and that's how a perfect world is going to be, is if we can all just treat each other so perfectly. Let's say you could do that. But who's the only person you're forgetting within that is yourself. You're out there treating all your homies all absolutely perfect. You got your ducks in a row, right? You're minding your P's and Q's and maybe your Z's as well, and taking a nap on the side to hopefully have enough energy to keep up this fakeness, because you're trying so hard to hold everything outside of you together, but you're exploding on the inside, right? And then once you mess up about, you accidentally almost said something mean to somebody else and you almost messed up the perfect world, you're beating yourself up in the head, right? As far as in your intellect, in your psyche. You're like, dude, I can't believe you did that, bro. You didn't tell that guy to have a great day. You just said have a good one. You could have done better. And so now your whole perfect world has been rocked from the inside out, right? What's the easiest way to everybody, let's have a civil war, right? I mean, the easiest way to collapse a nation is from the inside. You can't really tear something down from the outside if it's really, really strong rooted inside of itself. But the human being is a ticking time bomb. We only got about 80 years and we explode to death. I don't know. I mean, we do, but that was not quite exactly worded. I mean, we don't really explode in every one of our cases. Some people die by explosions. That's nuts. But some people just calmly pass away in their sleep. What I mean though, this is what I love about In the Image Clothing Company podcast. We just get saying stuff, dude. I mean, it's just real, but it's we're not holding back, which is how we should all be. That's what I mean, right? Yeah, they're holding back. And then you beat yourself up inside for it, right? And so a perfect world has to stem from within you. You can go out there and try to change the world all you want. Well, I was talking about who I started calling Mr. Martin in episode 74 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Martin Luther King Jr. up there on the pulpit, talking to the people, telling them we're equal, right? Get underneath the steeple, he's saying the same words. It's absurd. Someone thought he turned over a new leaf. He's just reviving something that was there in the past. Found a fossil of a tree from BC, right? Prophesying for Christ to come, and he came. A lot changed, then we backslid because we got back in our own heads. See what I'm saying? It's the human condition. And so the whole thing is, you're never going to change the world by going out there somewhere to try to do it, right? You're thinking you're going to go traveling over to who knows what continent to try to help change the world. Well, it's you that needs to be addressed. Because if every human being just addressed their own being, then you've done it, right? If I could perfect myself, and if you could perfect yourself, and him and her, and then every single human, we have a perfect world. You don't have to look outside yourself. It's inside of you, right? That's the only place you're ever going to be. I talked about, a few episodes back, that phrase that people say, wherever you go, there you are. People are trying to get somewhere, but it's you that's going to go there. You try to perfect the world, but it's you who's experiencing it, right? You're not going to change anything outside of yourself. And you don't need to change yourself either. But a lot of people just neglect addressing their own being. You know, those people who really want to change everything about the world and they're looking at the world as if it's such a terrible dystopia and they're trying to fix it and I'm going to make it better. Well, they don't like to address themselves usually because they think they have all the answers out of their own doings and they're going to go fix everything else when really they're the problem because now they're trying to change other human beings. See what I mean? We can be in a perfect world, except we can't because we are sinful by nature. I say that so often within In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I think it doesn't matter, but it probably is the phrase that I've said the most out of anything within In the Image Clothing Company podcast is we're sinful by nature. I mention it in just about every single episode. At least, yeah. And if I don't, then hey, I messed up because I was supposed to. Not really, but like, let's say if I thought I was supposed to, right? Then again, I messed up. A sin is just a mistake. We do that. So you're looking outside yourself. That's the first mistake. Don't be trying to change things out there. Change what's needed, but really just address who you are. And we have every ability to live in a perfect world. If we weren't in it, right? We're the ones that mess it up. Adam and Eve were in a perfect world. Literally. The Garden of Eden. The perfect place. But then they got in the way of it. Perfect world's there if we're not. We can totally have a perfect world if we're not the problems, right? You're never going to better the world by looking outside of yourself. Mr. Martin, right? Standing up on the stand and he's looking at himself. And he's like, look, we're created equal. I know that I haven't treated every other person equal my whole life either. But at least I understand that we can do better, right? But it starts with you. It starts with looking inward. And so that's the whole thing with a perfect world, with the utopia. It can't exist. Now, can we have some good news, right? The word gospel, literally translated into English, that's what it means, good news. The gospel of Jesus Christ, that's the whole thing. You're never going to have a perfect world, but we're not supposed to. We're supposed to mess up, right? And this sounds a little bit familiar. If you've heard past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, if you've ever sat within a Christian church, right? Because it's the truth of all things. A lot of people out here trying to make things so perfect. People who understand the truth of all things, the gospel of Jesus Christ, know that, hey, we're never going to be, but that's why our God is, right? The utopia is after this life. Celestial kingdom, right? Kingdoms of glory, mansions in heaven waiting for us, and whatever else could be there, and who cares is the point. Just have some faith, because you can think it's all you want, but if you're wrong, then, oh, what happened then? You can think you can change the world all you want until you don't look in the mirror. Shout out to Michael Jackson. We talked about him in episode 74 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I was talking about black people left and right. Put my hands up with surrender. It is what it is. I thought it was really cool because you got to hear what I'm saying, not what you're hearing. But Michael's looking at that man in the mirror, dude. There's a song by Michael Jackson titled Man in the Mirror. If that's the exact wording of the title, if not, it's something similar to that. But that's the thing, you don't look outside yourself to change the world. You just look at yourself and see, what role am I playing in the grand scheme of all these things that I am seeing around me, right? A utopia is a silly concept. I remember being in high school, and my English teacher was like talking to us about utopias. And yeah, it really is. It's the people who think that the world should be so much better that are actually the ones making it worse. That's true. That's not me like pointing fingers, but it really is. That's really what's happening. That's when it happens. That's when the world gets so bad, is when people think that it should be better, rather than understanding how evil they are individually. I mean, I talk about that. Let me see. Hold on. Okay, I was going to see if my jaw was going to pop. I've had a lot of stiffness within my jaw, in a good way, though. As the rest of my body is getting more centered, my jaw is aligning, and it's needing to adjust, right? And we've talked about that in all the ways that we have and do and will, but that was not some side comment. I wanted to release it if it needed to, because honestly, I feel it kind of stiff, but it's not in a bad way. Like I'm saying, it's just things do need some time to adjust. Things take time. Good things take time. Yeah, they do. So I love that. That's probably going to be an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, something titled very similar to that, when and if it does come, because yeah, good things take time. But, yeah, when people want the world to be so much better, then they go out there and they try to change things that are never going to change, and they get frustrated about it, and then they beat themselves up, feeling like they're not doing enough to change something that they just never will, because they can't. Right? And so then that causes problems. But it's the people who are just content knowing what life really is, not having an opinion on life, but looking at things as they are and just seeing the human condition, as we say, right? I mean, that's just what it is. Again, the sinful by nature state of a human being. You're never going to change the world. As much as I say that I'm going to change the world, because I've said that, and I've addressed what I mean by that. Yeah, it's one little small act of kindness at a time, right? But really, it has to start within yourself. And, you know, there's no such thing as a utopia, but there totally could be, but there can't be. Right? That's the whole point of this life, is that it's not so great. Is that okay to say, right? I mean, like, that's one of those things that kind of feels like that. Like, shoot, we really wording it like that? Yes, because that's the case. This life's not supposed to be so great. It's truly not. Again, one of those maybe contrary to popular opinion, belief, and hope. The things that I say that we shouldn't have, right? Don't believe me, but exactly what I mean. We don't need to hope for things and believe in things and have opinions on things, but we just will, right? It's just, we're in a dystopia because we have a God who wants it to be that way because he's perfect. It could never be a utopia. Otherwise, it would have stayed that way, because that's actually how it started, right? I mean, you start something good, a good friendship, and you think you'll never fight until you do. You know, you start a relationship with a member of the opposite sex, a romantic relationship, and you think you'll never have an argument, and then you do. It always starts seeming perfect, and in the case of our Earth, literally perfect, the Garden of Eden, but it's supposed to fall and crumble and mess up and shatter. Yeah. It is, man. So we can never have a utopia. We can never have a perfect world. Otherwise, there'd be no point. Opposition in all things, right? What would have happened to Garden of Eden? What would have happened to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden if it was just always perfect? Would they have ever even experienced anything or ever known what to do? Or would it ever have mattered even, right? If everything's so perfect, is it perfectly good or is it perfectly evil? And how would you even know? You know what I mean? The reason we don't have a utopia, and we never could, even though we could, if we didn't get in the way, that's crazy, because that's the case. It's not going to happen because that's not the plan. And again, we didn't decide it. We didn't design it. We can't decide it. You know, our God made all this to be a problem for us. Truly. He gave us this whole thing so that we could kind of stumble around for a bit, to call on him, right? Be like, Father, you know all this. What do I do? Kind of lost in this corn maze of life, you know, and I need some help. And he's like, great, that's what I want you to do. Just come to me, always, continuously, without ceasing, right? That's what he commands us to do, actually. It's commandment, is to pray continuously. In every thought, doubt not, fear not, look unto Christ. right? You're in a perfect world, and what are you going to do? You get bored. Bored of perfection, right? I mean, there's no such thing as perfect because we are human beings. Living in a utopia, man. It's you. You're the problem. Now hear this correct, but hear it, because this is good. It's like what I was saying. People who feel like the world is the problem, and they're trying to fix and change and sculpt and shape the world to what they want it to be. It's actually them that's the problem. But if we can just get behind ourselves a little bit, right? Episode 74 of the Image Clothing Company podcast. Being behind yourself. But no, if you can really kind of look at your own self and realize you're not going to change things, and that's why they're not changing. That's why you don't live in a utopia, because you're trying to, right? If you can just step back and look at things as they are, then no, you're not going to live in a utopia in this life. None of us will, because that's just not what this place is for. There's a reason we came to this earth. There's a reason we have this whole thing called the world that we're supposed to overcome, because that's the whole phrasing of it. We overcome the world. We're not sent here to change the world. We're sent to overcome it, as if it's just what it is, and we are bettering our own beings. Right? Yeah. I mean, our God came to this earth. If it was supposed to become a perfect place, like at that time or whatever, like he would have done it. He's perfect. He's almighty. He came and the world did what it was supposed to do. And he did what he was supposed to do. He didn't change who he was. He lived his perfect, sinless 33 years. And the world killed him. See what I mean? He didn't look outside himself to try to change anything. He took his, in his case, perfect being, in our cases, being disciples of Jesus Christ, all that we can do and all the Christ-like attributes we can have and shape and sculpt and allow Christ to grow within us, we take those and we share them with others. We don't go out there trying to make others be what we want. We need to be what we want our world to be like. A utopia starts from within, right? Because Christ didn't change, but neither did the world. We don't have to let the world change us. That's hard. That's hard to do. I'm not trying to tell you like I'm so good at doing that and like, you know, as if I'm preaching from example out of like how to, because I've like perfected it. No, I mean, I can preach from example in the ways that I know how to, but never will I, or you, or him, or her perfect that. The world shouldn't affect us, but it's going to. Right? It's this whole, like, two-sided thing every time we talk about it, because it's the paradoxical gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the opposition in all things. So, the world didn't change at all. Christ, our God didn't come to this earth to change it. He came to this earth to make an impact on it. He was looking at the man in the mirror, not to be, yeah, we're fine saying that. Yeah, no, because that's the case. I mean, even Michael Jackson, that's his song, right? He was doing all that he could do to be a good person. And that's what the lyrics of his song are saying. He's starting with the man in the mirror. How does that song go? I'm asking him to make a change, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, you take a look at yourself and make a change. Just about word for word. If I messed up a little bit lyric-wise, then whatever. But that's Michael Jackson's song, Man in the Mirror. That's the whole thing. That's what Christ did, right? Again, when I talk about people like Mr. Martin, right? Mr. Martin, yeah. Or Michael Jackson, or we talk about Gandhi, we talk about, there's a lot of names that people know of because because of what they did. But what I mean is, again, like I've said with these people that I've discussed a little bit of their life and their impact, all they've done is say the exact same thing that our God tells us because it's the truth, right? His word is the truth. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I mean, however it's exactly worded, that's what it says within the first book of the Bible, Genesis. Also, the same book where it discusses the Garden of Eden, meaning our God's Word is Him. His Word is alive. The Book of Mormon, the Holy Bible, true doctrine, true passages of Scripture. It's His Word, and it's Him. His Word is alive. Right? It's the living word of our living God. That's why we use these phrases, because it's the truth. That's just really how it is. Yeah, that's humbling because yeah, Christ came and he just was who and what he was. And he didn't change. Right? But we're his sons and daughters, and we don't have to change because of things that are around us, surface level, worldly garbage, right? This whole dystopia that we're trying to make a utopia. The utopia is inside you. It's the spirit of our living God that does dwell within us. And we just need to hold on to it. Right? Stand in holy places and be not moved. It's not about looking outside yourself at all. It's about you. You can be that utopia to the degree that you can. But within you is a utopia. That's truth. Within you is the perfect that you're looking for. But it's not you. It's the Spirit of our God. And we're a vessel that He's allowed to dwell in if we're allowing ourselves to be as holy as we can, right? He doesn't dwell within unholy temples. But, I mean, where's the degree of what's, holy? Because as a human being, you're never going to be perfect in this life. But it's like within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? We get recommended to go to the temple. We get a temple recommend. Doesn't mean we're perfect, but it means we're doing really good at trying, even though you messed up. Like a lot of times in doing that, you're trying hard, to do really good, to emulate Jesus Christ. And so that's when we can dwell within His temple. But again, that's when His Spirit will dwell within us, being a temple. Our bodies are temples. So, yeah, this perfect world, this utopia, it is inside you already. And it's never going to be outside of you in this life. It's never going to be something that you're going to look around and see as what you're thinking that perfect world is all over the place, because it's supposed to be evil. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. Yeah. But then we have places of refuge, right? We've got the church. We've got, and let me be very clear. The church is like the word Zion, right? Zion's not a place, it's a people. The church, like Christianity, isn't a building with a steeple on top of it. It's followers and disciples of Jesus Christ who gather together. And that could be in somebody's living room or out on the shore of the ocean, right? Or wherever. I mean, anywhere. Yeah, anywhere, right? Or within the church, yes, of course, right? The building that we call the church. Yeah. So, with that being said, though, that's what I mean. There is the ability to experience this utopia to the degree that we can. But it's like within the garden, right? Of Adam and Eve are there in this perfect place, but it doesn't even matter then. If everything's perfect, oh my goodness, guess what? it doesn't even matter if you guess or not. I'm going to say something. That's what I was alluding to. The Incredibles, the movie The Incredibles by whoever made that. I'm not exactly sure, but whoever made The Incredibles, shout out to you. Mr. Incredible, Miss Incredible, Mrs. Right? There's this guy in there named Syndrome. And first of all, think about what that name is, right? You've got a syndrome. We talk about these like illnesses and ailments, and this person's got X amount of who knows what kind of syndrome to him or her, right? But this villain in the show's name is Syndrome, and there's the superheroes, right? The Incredibles, the family, that's their last name, but they're like heroes. Now, this villain, Mr. Syndrome, think about it like this. His whole quote-unquote syndrome is wanting to be perfect, right? The Incredibles, they know... Wow, I love this. I didn't know I was going to say anything about this at all. So everything that's coming from this right now is just out of the, the spirit speaking through me, no joke, because this is amazing. Check this out. For me, is what I mean. You don't got to believe nothing, but this is amazing to me, because this is how it is. That's why his name's Syndrome. He wants everything to be the same, right? But the Incredibles, they're heroes because they know that there's always evil to the world, and they're doing their part. They're not trying to change the world. They're doing what they can to do what they need to out of their own doings, right? Again, not right as in I'm asking for like agreeance. I just mean, look at that. Look at that movie. That's really great. It's just a good movie as well, but the metaphor is just going right along with this title, episode 75 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled A Perfect World. Because Syndrome says this line. His whole goal was, right, to get everybody to be superheroes. He was going to make everybody a superhero. And then he said, because when everyone's super, then no one will be, right? If everybody's a superhero, then nobody's a superhero. If everybody's perfect, then nobody is anything better or worse than anybody else. If you live in the Garden of Eden and everything's exactly utopia, then you don't even know anything different. Nothing matters. The reason why we like things that are so good is because we've had a hard week. And so now you're sitting there watching your favorite show on your couch, curled up in your favorite blanket. And it's an experience that you're cherishing because it seems to only happen every now and then, right? This peace that we experience when and if we do, right? The reason why it's such a beautiful thing is because it's a momentary thing. It's something to hold on to. It's something that's like a special occasion type of thing. A utopia would get boring. When everyone's super, no one will be, right? I'm pretty sure that's how he words it, because, that's how it is, dude. We have one perfect God, and we got all these crazy little villains of human beings. I'm a villain. Not so proud of it, but I didn't design it, I can't decide it. I'm out here doing stuff bad and wrong and evil, left and right. And sometimes I switch it up a bit and do it right and left, but I'm just a human being, dude. I'm just doing things that I shouldn't. But my God's perfect, right? He is the utopia. And again, where does he dwell? Not over there in that third world refuge you're going you're going over there on some kind of, retreat to go help some nonprofit organization outside of yourself. It's within you. So do everything from the inside out, right? There's that scripture talked about, like, in old scripture and old ways of seeing things, people would think that it was the, what goes into a man that defiles him. But then Christ came and he's like, no, it's what comes out of a man that defiles him. All these evil words you're saying and your evil doings that are coming out of you, that's what's defiling you. Because again, it starts from within. The utopia is inside of you. It's not outside of you. It's not anywhere else. It's not going to be. But it's also never going to be perfect. And neither is the inside of you. And that's, let me be very so clear. Please, let me be clear. Can I be clear? Still waters run deep. So let me be clear. Listen to this, if you would. You need to hear this if you care. Don't care, but listen to this. Okay. I don't know why it's such a lead up, because I know what I'm going to say, but it's like it's not quite time to say this yet. I'm going to say it when it comes out. What I'm saying is, I know that I'm saying all this stuff about we'll never be perfect. And then I said the utopia is inside of you. And so if the world is a problem, then address yourself first. Well, you're probably being told by everybody else okay, hopefully not everybody else, dude. Don't hope for things either, but golly, right? But some people in your life might be trying to tell you you're the problem. And, well, that's what we need to see. That's what I'm saying. If people are telling you you're the problem, then it's like they're taking all the focus off of themselves as if they couldn't be by any means, right? They're trying to act as though they're perfect, like my dad growing up, always telling me I was the problem. But that means that he never was in his mind, right? Again, all his beliefs about how he's so perfect. Or however that really works, right? I mean, do you see what I mean? I like that I got a little bit stumbled and caught up on that because, yeah, I mean, if somebody's trying to tell you that you are the problem, it's because they really are and they're not willing to address it. What I'm saying here is that we all equally are the problem. But I want to make it very clear how to really see that correct. Because yes, you are the problem. And yes, the guy speaking, Evan Strong, me, I am the problem. But we got to see it as it is because it's the human condition. It's this state that we're placed into and we're supposed to be kind of causing problems, actually, truly. Getting into things that we can't get ourselves out of, right? Digging holes that are too deep for us to climb because of things that we have done ourselves, truly. Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. And so when I say the utopia is inside of you, I can see people taking that a little bit wrong, as in just the way that you shouldn't, because the way that it never is, and thinking, well, that's what my mom told me when she said I had to be perfect and she expected more from me and blah, blah, blah. Or that's what your dad or your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend or, you know what I mean, or your wife or husband or anybody who left you or whatever. It's not like that because I see that people could take it like that. So I'm glad that that came up, that I could clarify. Because, yeah, it's not about when I'm saying you're the problem and you are, so am I. Truthfully, yes. But also, like I'm saying, we're never going to be perfect. And so that's what I mean when we're not trying to change the world in that kind of way. You know, a little act of kindness at a time, sure, pay it forward type of thing, as I've talked about, yes, and I do and I will, and I'm trying in the ways that that happens, and we all should, because that's also what we've been commanded to do. But, meaning, like how I said, Christ didn't come and try to change everything, because he could have, right? He could do that any second, at any time ever, except he won't, because that goes against his word, and he's a promise keeper, the perfect promise keeper, and he said he won't do that. He is who he says he is. Well, until he comes again, right? The second coming. And yeah, he's here to wipe everything evil out. I'm evil. See what happens then. See you guys on the flip side. Find out who was the most evil. See who actually gets completely burned and sent to hell. I'm going to sit on that for a second because that probably sounds bold, but it is what it is. Right? We are evil, but to the degrees is really what oh gosh, there we go. I didn't realize that I was where I was when I said that. That's what I was trying to get to, is some kind of wrap up, not for the whole episode necessarily, but because no, I don't think we're wrapping it up yet, but wrapping up what I was saying there about how, yeah, you're the problem, but you're supposed to be. I mean, it's like what I just said. We're all evil. I mean, at the end, it's just those people who are actually going to get burned are the people who are trying to change the world externally, and they don't address themselves. But Michael Jackson, he's a heavenly man. Truly, I mean, because of the lyrics in his song, because he lives up to the lyrics in his song, is what I mean. Yeah, he was addressing himself. He was doing all he could to his, within his own being before he tried to change anything else. He started with the man in the mirror, right? The utopia was inside of him, and he knew it. He knew God, and he's like, look, My God, this is like Michael Jackson speaking, for example, right? He's like, my God didn't come to this earth and try to change everything. He came to this earth and did what he could out of his own doing. And our God is almighty. When I say did what he could have done anything. But again, meaning he did things to be the example, things to start a revolution, things to have people look at it and be like, whoa, that guy did a lot without doing much, right? Healing people without asking for any kind of like recognition from it or anything. It's those kind of things, right? It's, yeah, doing things to be an example rather than doing things to try to make an example of others. Because that's, again, those kind of people who just aren't willing to look at themselves, but then they're so complaining about the world. Now, what they're complaining about is something that they don't quite know where is that thing that they're looking at. It's inside of them. They're complaining about their own being, but projecting it on everything else and everybody else's possible target for their blame gun, right? See what I mean? The utopia is inside of you because Christ was perfect. And so he lived in an evil world, but it didn't change him. Michael Jackson, I don't know. Michael Jackson, as sinful as he is, it's just like me, as sinful as I am. Anybody, I don't want to use a specific person. I don't know. I mean, we talked about Michael Jackson. I just don't want to make the whole episode about like one human being who's, well, yeah. But just meaning, because we were using his song as an example, but if it's me or if it's anybody, him or her, if we can look at ourselves and start there, right, then that's where the utopia idea can be blossomed, right? It always starts within your own being. So, yeah. But that is beautiful, Michael's song, because if you want to make the world a better place, you take a look at yourself and you make a change. That's really how you can tell. Not that we're trying to pit people against each other, but really, that's how you can tell who's actually feeding into problems the worst, if you will. It's not a comparison, but it is like, again, the blame gets placed on the people who are actually doing the most good, right? Christ was the most persecuted quote unquote person, quote unquote human being, because he's our God, but he was also, yes, a human being when he came. He humbled himself and became the Son of Man, right? He is the Son of God, but he got born of Mary, Mother Mary, right? To be the Son of men, as in mankind. He was a human being himself. And I don't know for sure where I was going before I said that. But I guess that's just the whole thing, right? He, I think it just humbled me so much when I said that. Start talking about scripture, dude, and that's what In the Image Clothing Company podcast really is. It's just truth. It's just scripture, words that aren't mine. Yeah, things that I didn't decide, right? Yeah. So anyway, though, yeah, because well, I'll kind of further what I was saying. It's not that we're comparing anything, but the people who are getting blamed the most are usually the people that are actually doing good things. Right, Christ was perfect, but there was no other person. That's where I was. I said like quote unquote person because he's not just a human, but he is also, right. Yeah, and that's something that like I say, we're just never going to understand anything completely in this life. And so yeah, our God was completely human when he was here for those 33 years, but also he's still God at the same time. Stuff that you don't need to try to wrap your intellect around, but your faith can tell you truth. So there was nobody else that was ever persecuted more than him, or told that they were the problem more than he got told that. And so that's what I mean, right? Those people who are always blaming others. Not that we're comparing, not that we're trying to say anything we shouldn't, but those are the people that are actually causing a bigger problem. Causing the world to be more of a dystopia rather than a utopia, right? On the evil end rather than the good end. It is the people who are trying to change the world as far as outside of themselves, rather than just going as the example and doing things that they can so that other people can learn from them. Even the mistakes. Even that in itself, right, is a good thing. It's good to make mistakes. Yeah. So anyway, that's really cool, dude. I mean, the perfect world is inside you, right? But it's not something that we're going to fully experience, even if we can taste it, right? Taste and see that the Lord is good. But then at the same time, we live in the world still. And we are a part of it. Like I said, we are the problem. Human beings are the reason that human beings can't live in a perfect world. There's nothing outside of us that's stopping that from being the case. It's us. We are the problem, and we really, truly are, in a good way. Because again, with context, with understanding that that's supposed to be the case. And not in the ways... Yeah, because you're not the problem in the ways that the tyrannical person in your life is telling you that you are, right? That's why, like I always say, nothing matters in this life besides getting closer to Christ. Because if you put importance on anything else or trying to please anybody else, right? Like I say in one of these past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, like that whole Ghostbusters song, like, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. I said, who are you trying to please? And then I said, no wonder. Because if you're trying to please men, then you're always gonna think you're the problem. But if you're trying to please God, the world's gonna tell you how big of a problem you are, and you're gonna be like, all right, cool. Tell me, right? Our God is the King of Kings. He is the King of the Jews. He is the Messiah. He is everything that everybody was like getting after him for claiming. And so he was the problem to the world. There's a helicopter outside. I don't know if you can hear it, but I definitely can. I just kind of bring it up because if my attention's a little bit scattered, there's a helicopter sound. And also if you can hear it, that's what you're hearing. If that's what you're hearing. But yeah, like hear this correct. This is bold truth, though. The truth is bold, and that's how I can be here. Because again, it's not like I'm discussing something that I want to be an opinion of mine or that I want somebody to care about because I say so. But I've just discussed truth imperfectly. But yeah, our God was, hear this correct. But let me preface it on the giving it some good coming into it properly. To the world, our God not only was, but also just is the problem. To the world, right? But the world is evil. And that's what I mean, right? With all this, I mean, yeah, he didn't come to change it. He came to overcome it. The world's always going to look at truth and righteousness and goodness and love as the problem. But our God is the answer. But he's, misunderstood. He gets his words all twisted by people, right? And we all get our words twisted by people as much as that happens. So, right? But the whole thing is, how did he react to it? That's what I mean. It doesn't matter who thought what or who said what about him. His reaction to it and his, quote-unquote comeback, well, it didn't exist as far as he didn't do things to try to get back at the world. He just stayed true to what and who he is, and he is who he says he is, and he's perfect. I mean, in ways, yeah. Don't get me wrong. For your sake, I mean, and don't let me be trying to tell you for your sake. I say whatever I want. I mean, I could just sit here saying things that are just absolute random, who knows, and try to get anyone to believe whatever. And that's why I say, please don't believe me, because any of this and all of this and everything I could ever say could just be me trying to get someone to believe anything that I thought was something I wanted them to. So don't believe me, but just again, take the truth within what I do say. But I want to be very clear. It's scripture, right? Go read it for yourself. And also just pray to God and know who Christ really is personally, because that's the actual goal, right? The whole point is getting closer to Christ in your own individual situation, with nobody telling you that you're doing that good or bad or right or wrong, because they can't. But that's what I mean. Our God, definitely was kind of like backlashing at the world at times. I mean, he was sitting there, screaming at people and stuff in the ways that he did. Oh yeah, I mean, right. I mean, you hear like the wrath of God, and yes, I mean, oh yeah, definitely. But like I'm saying, his intention, it's not like he's just like so upset about it and trying to change it, but can't. If he was going to, he would. Right? But it's not supposed to be a utopia. This earth, this worldly existence that we have, right? It's not. I mean, because even if we're just looking at like the earth, if a utopia, if you wanted to, however you wanted to define it, but some people would definitely define it as like no death, right? A utopian society is no death. Well, even that in itself, our perfect almighty God came here just to die. He literally came to this earth to die. That's why he came. But even if we're looking at like the animals on the earth and stuff, right? There's predators and there's prey. And so you've got a utopia, and then what do the predators eat? And then let's say that everything just only eats just eats plants only, right? I'm vegetarian, but still, I mean, it's essentially a life that has to get taken. You uproot a plant and it doesn't continue to grow. And so then where do you draw the line at whatever that you want your utopia to be? That's what I mean is we're the problems, because we're trying to define what a utopia should look like or what it can be defined as. And we're trying to make this world, or even our actual earth, be what we want it to be, if we think that it should be anything that it just isn't. And now we're the problem, because we're trying to change truth. And the truth is, Adam fell, and he was supposed to, right? That's it. That's like a wrap-up point. I don't know if we will, but as far as that discussion, like that's beautiful. I just elbowed the wall. The reason I said that, I was very like aware of saying that as I did. The reason I said that I elbowed the wall is because maybe I am supposed to wrap it up. Because I was saying, I don't know, as if like maybe there's a lot more that I could say. Because I mean, we could talk however long I could just keep talking for about anything that we discuss here. But I feel like that elbowing the wall was kind of like, yeah, wrap it up. That's a good point to wrap it up on. So, yeah. Anyway, there's your discussion that I have given on, what a utopia isn't. Yeah. So, yeah. Frank the guitar, man. I will say, last night, dude, I was sitting here playing with Frank the guitar, as in literally playing the guitar that is Frank, and I was ripping through it, dude. I sat here and filmed about an hour-long thing of me just playing, and did some adjustments to him, and my body is still just adjusting as it is, and especially the past week, dude. It's been... You can probably see, if you're watching this episode 75 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and then even just ones leading up until now, as I've talked about, you can probably see just the way that I sit, the laxity is the word I'm going to use that I have, because I'm able to, because I'm allowing my body to work, right? Yeah. Anyway, things have been... adjusting a lot in my own personal physical body within the past few days, especially. It's been really cool. Just such a gift. So, listen to this. That's my ankle popping. Anyway, this is episode 75 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Today is the 4th. Shoot. whatever I said at the beginning. I'm pretty sure it's the 4th of March, 2025. It's a Tuesday. So go back in your calendars and find out if you really want to know exactly what the date was today. And yeah, my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. We are what our last two words in our company name say, right? In the Image Clothing Company. We are a clothing company. We will have clothing available when we do, made out of 100% natural materials, staying centered, fitting correct, and allowing the body to work. Oversized clothing is just as damaging as imbalances in clothing because it in itself is an imbalance. That's a lot of like words starting with I, so I kind of got a little stumbled. But yes, oversized clothing, it pulls down on your body physically, like just even if the weight of it isn't heavier, like let's say you've got something oversized that's actually lighter than something that would actually fit you correct, that oversized thing is still going to pull your body down more. But also it just falls to the dominant side because it's never going to sit centered if it's got play in it because it's oversized. So very damaging to the body. If you ever purchase In the Image Clothing Company clothing, no obligation, first off, but if you decide to, it's going to do what we say that it does. I mean, that's every intention we have will be for it to, right? Just allow the body to work, but just make sure you do all that you can to purchase it in your size if you ever do. Yeah. Allowing the body to work, dude. Just allow it. Just allow it to. Just allow it to. That's another thing within utopias, people have this idea of what they want their body to do. Well, I kind of was mentioning this, sort of saying something pretty similar to this toward the start of this episode 75 of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. A perfect world. People want a perfect body, right? But the more that you try to get your body to be perfect, you're trying to change the only truth that there is. The only truth of your body is how it's going to be if you don't alter it. Once you've altered it, now it's actually going to be just in pain, and we don't even need to have an and, but all the things that do come from altering the body, right? Yeah, that's awesome. Because yeah, the quote-unquote perfect body is the one you have. I don't care about, we mentioned a little bit earlier, deformities, right? I don't care. You got deformities, I don't even care. We can list all sorts of things that are different in your body than that model that you looked at last week, but it was just a piece of polyurethane because it was a mannequin or a mannequin or a mannequin. You can't manicure yourself to be whatever you want because your body's just what it is. That's the perfect you, if you will. Again, this utopia of this like Barbie, not to use anybody's like term from their like product, but just like what it means to be a Barbie, what it means to be, right. So ideal, quote unquote, in the eyes of men, meaning mankind, right? So a man to a woman, like visual interest wise, for example, right? Or a woman to a man, or whatever, just whatever you're trying to do, whoever you're trying to compare with to get your perfect body, it's the one you already have because that's how it was designed, and it's designed to work. It's designed how it is because our God did and not us, and he is perfect and we're not. So again, this whole utopia thing, it starts with you understanding that you already are perfectly what you are, perfectly sinful by nature. I mean, I think I've said something very similar to that in past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, because yeah, we're perfect at being what we are because a perfect God designed us. Our earthly existence is perfect at being a dystopia because it's supposed to be, right? Our utopia is surrender. Our actual perfect world is giving everything up, right? Following Christ. Our perfect world is not getting everything we want because that's what it's designed to be like. We're designed to just be content with what, just take what we're given, right? Rather than try to demand things and stuff. That's crazy. So I think that's kind of what I was saying at the start when I said, and that's what I meant when I said I thought of this idea on my walk today, and it was like really eye-opening to me because we do live in a utopia. Because a perfect God designed this place to be this. And it's not perfect to what we want, but guess what? We are not perfect either. So whatever we think should be isn't actually the ideal. And what we've been given here is. That's big. That's really how it is. And that's why there's this whole battle and debate about a utopia and if it should or if it shouldn't or if it is or if it isn't or if you can or if you can't. And Jesus Christ is what I always say is the answer to everything, right? All the times you hear me saying all the things I say, and then I say, it's not about that. It's about Jesus Christ. Because again, yes, he is the actual utopia. And he is the perfect and always was and always will be. And he dwells within us as long as we allow him to. And, look at the man in the mirror, right, in a sense. I mean, not just in a sense, I mean, truthfully, but I just don't want to feel like I'm like so hooked on just somebody's experience of life, just one man, right, just Michael Jackson for this episode. Because not that it was wrong and not that this is wrong either if I were to do that, but I don't want to, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I spend the majority of an episode talking about like one single human being and we're all just the same, right? So but I will say this, actually, holy cow, like I said, wrap it up, but who knows? And I do this, right? And who knows? Just keep talking till I don't anymore. Yeah, that's cool. But yesterday I was in a pet store. Shout out to pet stores. I love animals. And I don't listen to music currently. It's something I used to just listen to, I mean, pretty much every chance I could. I had little things in my ears playing music and whatever and stuff, right? And yeah. But now it's been a long time, like a year plus, that I've really even listened to much music at all, even really like uplifting music or anything. I just don't as of this time. But I make music, right? And stuff. So times and places for things, and there's reasons for things at certain times, right? And stuff like that. Gosh, this is the reason I keep like not fully even finishing. When I start saying something, I'm like, ugh. And then I start saying something again. It's because it humbles me every time I'm realizing what's happening and what's being had through my life, what's being experienced in my existence that I'm like not even aware of until I start to realize what's really going on. Because I don't even think about how I don't listen to music now. And on my walk, I was realizing I used to barely have any time in my days of like waking life that I didn't have some sort of music playing if I could have that be the case. And so, yeah, times and places for things get used in the ways that they do in our lives, right? There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, just a few back, titled Better at Times. And yeah, things just get used in times for reasons in our lives. And it's not like an end goal, right? Like how I say I don't listen to music, it's not like I never will again or like whatever, right? There's just moments and phases we go through for the reasons we do, and we learn through what we need to within those. But at the pet store yesterday, Miley Cyrus was playing through the speakers in the building, and I haven't heard her sing in quite a while. And the song that she was singing seemed to be new. But I can just kind of tell her voice is a little bit different. Not even just the sound of it, but just the way she approaches singing. I mean, she's older, more mature, she's been through more experience of life. And whatever the song was, it was something about, because I kind of do want to give it like a little bit of a, well, I want to give her credit. What I'm saying is I like Miley Cyrus a lot. Unpopular opinion, cool, right? Put your sights back down to a safe level of either pointing at the earth or pointing into the sky, because I'm just a messenger, so please do not pull that trigger. But Miley Cyrus is really cool. I really do like her, and I always have. yeah, I mean, we all just get tossed around on this earthly existence of a wavy sea, right? Shout out to Peter within the Holy Bible, right? I mean, yeah, seriously. But Miley Cyrus, my shoulder popped. Her song that was on the radio yesterday, or on the soundtrack within the pet store, the lyrics were something like how she used to be crazy, she used to be whatever, she used to be something, and then she said, but she used to be young, right? And that's what I mean is when I just said you can tell the maturity within just her voice, not even just the lyrics, not how whatever, but just, I mean, you can tell just in somebody's approach to having words exit their being. You can just hear experience within their speech. Um, and just almost like the texture to their voice, even like seriously. And I could tell that within her song yesterday. And man, I don't even know for sure why I brought that up, but I'm glad that I did. She's just she, man, she's someone who's had some experience, man. I mean, on TV at a young age, her dad was famous before she really was, like out of her own fame, right? Um, she's done some pretty crazy things, oh for sure, right? But then also been very impactful to people. Um, Man, I mean, I actually really respect Miley Cyrus. Again, as unpopular of an opinion that could be to people, I like to say stuff like this, stuff that's just authentic to me, but being intentional to say things like this, not making it anything it isn't out of like my view toward anything that I talk about, but being very clear to vocalize things, being who I am that people might think are like something I wouldn't say. Um, because I guess for that reason, right? We just are who we are. I mean, because you can think a utopia is whatever you want, and you look at some people's lives, and at different times they're just so drastically different. They themselves seem to be so different, but then also their approach on life does. The things they're like producing, as far as her music or her movies or any content, but I think that's the whole thing about this perfect world. What makes this world so great is that there's all this contrast to it, right? Like I said, within the Garden of Eden, if it was just always perfect, there never would have been even like appreciation that could have been had for how perfect it was because there was no contrast. Dude, shout out to Miley Cyrus, just out of all sincerity, like regardless of what the podcast episode was titled or whatever. I really, that's the word, is I respect Miley Cyrus, dude. Just out of authenticity, just me, Evan Strong, just saying that publicly, like for, during this episode. But again, no matter which one it was or wherever, I mean, she's somebody, man, who, I've talked about a few people. One, it's the people that I usually do mention within the podcast are people who are